One, two, three.
Welcome to Scéalta. My name is Joe Austin. And can I remind those who have just tuned in, the Scéalta is a joint production of Fáilte Fierce Here and Fail and Fubble. And my guest tonight on this show is a very special guest. It's a guest who is no stranger to Belfast. He's been here, and I live in Belfast probably more often than I have. It's Brian Warfield of the Wolf Tones.
Good to be here, Joe, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for taking time out. I know you're trying to get ready for the show and you're putting together rehearsals and perfecting that performance, so I really appreciate you taking time out. When I was researching the questions that I hope to ask you today, I have to say, first of all, that I always wanted to do a gig with the Wolf Tones, and now I have it. So that's my claim to fame. I don't care whatever else I feel in. That's my claim to fame. But when I was researching material just to ask you some questions, it was amazing. The volume of work, the length of time that the Wolf Tones have been on the road is amazing. So if I've got it right, Wolf Tones began life in 1964, is that true?
That's right, and for the year before, we were a loose kind of a group. We weren't consolidated into what is the Wolf Tones now, but I was in folk music since I was a member of the Young Folk Song Society in Dublin. And so I always had an interest in both folk music and history. And in the early days, we went around all parts of Ireland because we were discovering our country. And we went around the various parts of Ireland, and I'd be collecting bits of songs and bits of things and learning about our country. And, you know, I always feel that we were the first generation of Irish people to have some kind of freedom outside the crown. I know you haven't got it here yet. But we were a generation of young people trying to find our path in life and our path as Irish people.
Let me talk a wee bit about your music, and then we'll come into the spirit of your music, because it is central to all of that.
Yeah.
Keeps coming through, Inchicore boys, so proud of Dublin that it would make Belfast people jealous. And I want to return to that love of Dublin, which you've obviously got, and I can see the smile in your face.
Yes.
No matter where you are, you're a Dublin boy.
Yeah, sure. And Dublin was like a very exciting place, I would say, in the 60s. And, you know, we were discovering, as I said, both our town and our country. And, you know, I often remember waiting for the bus there on Burkey, and there'd be a commotion outside. It'd be the last bus going out to Bluebell, where I lived in Chicore. And there'd be a big commotion or something outside the pub. What's going on there? It's only Brendan being having a fight, you know. So you're witness to all that. And let's put it, the pub scene in Dublin, as I'm sure it was here too, was a kind of a mix of everything. People who knew everything about politics, you know, people the smart aleck, the know-all politician, you know, and they were the characters. And, you know, I used to be amazed at some of these old guys, you know, and I learned a lot from them. And so they were exciting times, you know. It was just the 60s were a time when everyone, you know, the young people wanted to make change. And they were trying to change the world and change Ireland and change everything forever.
We would have a fairly extensive research department, which really consists of one person, but we let on it's more impressive than it is. And I was asking someone who played with you, and I'm not going to tell you, you wouldn't expect me to tell you. But I said, was he always that way inclined? And they said he wasn't. When he was born, they didn't give him a baby's bottle, they gave him a tin whistle. And from Thomas Street Papers Club, he just had this ability to pick up music, and he had, it wasn't only that he could play, he understood what the music represented. And I know I think your father was a mandolin player, was
he? My father was mandolin, and he and his brother and some neighbours had a mandolin band. Now a mandolin band would have been, I think, very nice, because you'd have all them tremolos going, and they played local concerts and things like that. And the mandolin was always up in the attic, But when we grew up and I started getting an interest in music, we got him to take it down, and he'd play tunes and all that. And I was learning the tin whistle in Church Street Musical Club, and I in the Scéaltas there, and with Paddy Bon O'Brien, and he was a very famous tin whistler.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And he taught me the whistle, and then Derek, my brother, he wanted to take up something, and he asked Dad to teach him the mandolin. So he took up the mandolin, and I did tin whistle, and I moved on then to learning the guitar, and then learning the banjo, and then emigrating to England.
I want to talk to you about England just briefly. The song, and I can't go through the theme of every song because you've written that many and you've sang thousands.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I have to say that when you talk about the Wolf Tones, you're talking about the most successful Irish folk group in Irish music history. That just gives you that sense of, you know, from Carnegie Hall to the Barrowlands in Glasgow to London. But the song My Heart is in Ireland. And I want to talk about your mother, Kathleen, just if you don't mind. But when you was England difficult for you, a Dublin boy going there? Because it just strikes me, it's an immigrant song, and it's a very kind of a song that touches the heartstrings. Yeah,
well, I tell you how that song came about. We toured England a lot, and the Irish generations in England were always very, very important to me. And we were in Birmingham, and I mean, I've loads of cousins in England, all parts of England, but as every Irish person has. But, you know, the young crowd, the young people in Birmingham, we were in the Irish Centre, and they said, why don't you write a song about us? And I said, what do you mean about us? Well, he said, look, we speak with English accents. When we go to Ireland, they look upon us as kind of English. And when we're over here, they look upon us as paddies. And we're kind of caught in the middle of the deep blue sea, the Irish Sea somewhere. And said, can you write something for us to tell that story and give us something to hang on to? So what I did was wrote My Heart is in Ireland. And it takes, the way I looked at it was all the regions of England, Scotland, Wales. England is two Englands really, the south of England and the north of England. And then you've Wales, and then you've Scotland. So each part gets a section in the song. Near the coal mine in Wales, in the east end of London is the start of it, and then it moves on. I went north to Scotland, and before that it goes, I went through the Midlands, through each city and town. I found there were Irish in each place had gone. So like, it amazed me, like having lived in England I lived in London for about a year. And, you know, I did all the folk clubs over there, met all the folk musicians. And, well, we made some success. Myself and Noel were a group called Brian and Noel, that's what we were called. It wasn't very inventive, but
it worked.
It worked. So I remember we got the front page of one of the local papers, the Brentford Newsman's Herald, and we're on the front page of the paper. Oh my God, this is, you know, we never got the front page of a paper before, but it was Brian and Noel opened a new folk club in Brentwood, and which we did, and we were making a bit of a name, but it was a great scene over there. You had Dominic Breaney and Campbell Group, and you had, you know, lots and lots of people back then that were, and my cousin who still lives in London now, and he told me, he said, do you remember that club you used to play in Brentwood? I said, yeah. He said, do you remember Simon in that club? I said, yeah, I remember him, yeah. He said, you know who he is? He became Simon and Garfunkel. And I never knew that, but he told me that. So, you know, it just shows you how everybody had to start somewhere.
But you were always coming home. You were never going to stay in England.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think it was a great adventure for us because getting over there, it was the first time outside, you know, the family home, and I kind of grew up a bit, and I had to work, of course, as well. But you know, I was over there when I was about 17, so and we used to meet a lot of stray people from Dublin, like young teenagers who had run away from home and all that, and we had a big house in Lewisham, and we were like a charity up there, because
Bring everybody back.
we used to pick up strays here, there, and everywhere. And I remember I picked up these guys. God, I was young, but they were younger, about 15 and 14. And I said, well, what are you up to, you know? So anyhow, we decided to get them home. So we clubbed in a few bob wherever we had, and I brought them down to the parish priest in Deptford. And between us and him, we got our tickets home.
Shipped them back.
Yeah, to get them back home. Because they had no chance, you know, at that age.
No, absolutely.
You know, and all the time we were picking up strays like that, you know.
It just strikes me when it goes through, and I want to talk about you had a chance encounter in, I think it was a Flacule in Kerry, when you met someone who was involved in the Canadian Broadcasting Company, and that really set you on that road of it. But reading through your songs and listening to your songs, and I just crammed last night into listening to the Wolf Tones. Your heart's always in Ireland. I mean, whether you were in Carnegie Hall or whether you were in wherever part of the world you were, I get this feeling that, like, you know, you're just a dump.
Yeah, well,
just want to be home.
I was passionate about the fact that I wanted to bring the story of Ireland to the world, and I thought it was very important. And it didn't really hit me much until the kind of civil rights movement started in Ireland, and the way they were reporting it in America was disgraceful, because they took their lead from what was coming out of London.
Yeah,
let's put it that way. And London had the ear of the world because it controlled what came out of everywhere, really, because they were the news media. They went across. They were writers. They were. You know, they were all the great Associated Press, all stationed in London. So then when, you know, the troubles started, and I heard, you know, the way they were reporting about Irish terrorists and all this kind of propaganda they were putting around the world, and I could never see the reason they could call any Irish person a terrorist, you know, because the Irish people had done nothing but good to the world, and brought good to the world and brought good to America. So I resented that kind of thing. So at that point, I wanted to get across to the world that, you know, the Irish people were not terrorists, and they were great people, and they had a right to fight for their freedom. And that was an important message to get across, especially in America.
And I know you were massively successful in America, really successful in America. But America didn't hold you either. You came back to Ireland.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I want to ask you about, and I don't want to invoke sad memories, but we spoke a wee bit about your father, your mother, Kathleen.
Yeah, Kathleen, yeah.
Must have been a wonderful woman.
Yeah, well, we thought so, and everybody, you know, has a love for their mother that, you know, it's unique, I think, to each family. And the mother normally holds the family together. She died very young at 64 of cancer, and to this very day I still miss her.
And you wrote a song about her.
Yeah.
Tell us about
so it's important that it was recognised. It was a song actually that I was down in Mayo, and I had relatives down there in Hollymount, and this old lad had a bit of a song, Irish Eyes, and the song, I think I looked up in the libraries of songs, and there's something like almost 58 songs called Irish Eyes Are Smiling. And they all have a different slant in it. So I took the little bit of music that I got and I resurrected it once again. I played it for my mother before I even played it for anybody else, and she just loved it. Yeah. So then she died soon after that, so I dedicated it to her. But you know, it's the amazing amount of songs that have that title, Irish Eyes of Smile. So we must have something special in our eyes.
And sometimes we don't have a whole lot to smile about, but we get by.
We are always happy people, and that's what you find. That's what you find in Irish. You know, I've researched Ireland, its folklore, its history throughout the ages of every book going on Irish history, and from all aspects. And you know, especially books about the folklore. And you find in each stage of Ireland and its sad history that the humour came through. Mm. And that was a fantastic thing that they had, a sense to laugh at the worst situation that could ever happen to a people. You know, I know what they call the Gorta Mór indeed silenced the people for some time. It was catastrophic. It was unbelievable that, you know, that people, you know, I'm writing a musical about it at the moment, and the people, I gave it to the Abbey and they're going to have a look at it.
Very good.
But you know, the people are saying to me, how can you make the famine entertaining?
Yeah.
And you can, because, you know, what I do is I take a love story and I let it crash into the famine. And then everything that happens after that is they're looking for survival. What way can I survive this? And how can I get out of here? And how can I get to America? And so all that conflict goes on through the thing. And then, you know, they eventually get away, and, you know, leading up, you know, the songs like, I have a song like What Lies Ahead, a song like the crossing, the boats crossing, the famine ships and all that. And then I did, just before the ending, is a keen for the Millions Lost. And it's kind of a unique, odd piece of music, but it's sad and lonely, and as a keen should be. And it's remembering all the people across Ireland who died during that awful tragedy that was ruined Ireland forever.
You mentioned your love of history, and again, I think that comes through in your music. Mm. So if you combine that love of history with the love of Dublin, and those two things crash, you know, they just come together. Mm. And you have that situation that a lot of the history of Dublin has nearly been vandalised. It's nearly been systematically pulled down, destroyed. And I know you're passionate about Moore Street and the 1916 families. It must be heartbreaking for a historian, for a musician, for a Dubliner, you know, that we have to fight for Moore Street when it should be a national monument.
You shouldn't have to fight for it. And if we had anybody in government that cared, it wouldn't be the case that you need to fight. It's an important part of our history. And to destroy that, it's like trying to wipe out a great story.
Yeah,
now, one of the things that I think people come to Ireland for, it's the culture, the history. Like when they come over from America, I know that the people, I meet loads and loads of people in America of all walks of life, and they love Ireland as much as we do. I know people...
Not as much as you do.
Yeah.
As much as some do.
They do. In actual fact, I met people over there who are just passionate about the country.
Yeah.
And they have a passion too to get the story across. It's important to them because they left Ireland because mainly they couldn't live here anymore. They were driven out of the country. And their parents or grandparents or great-grandparents left that legacy to them. And so it's important to them that they get a chance to tell a story. Now, when I wrote the story of the famine thing that I'm doing, I wanted it to tell the story of Irish America because that was important to me. I know how sincere they are. I know how passionate they are. So, you know, no one tells their story. Everybody, every other country will have their story told, but Ireland's story has been suppressed somewhat. And I think it's because they don't want to annoy the British, you know, our great friends and all that. And, you know, that in Irish history, the British don't come out very well.
No.
They are the bad guys. So you have a goodie and a baddie, and they don't like being the baddie.
Having said that, the BBC give the Tones a very gracious award, the most popular song. Do you recall that?
Of course I do.
Tell us about that.
That was I found that a great crack indeed.
Thought it was amazing.
But yeah, it happened that I remember my son was into computers at the time and everything else, and he was doing his degree in university in Dublin, and he said, "Dad," he said, "you know you're in the charts for the best song." At this stage, I was way back before the end of the thing, so I said, "No." So I went in and had a look at it. Yeah, we were 67 or something, I don't know, but so we start putting it out on the internet.
What was the song?
A Nation Once Again.
That's
yeah. By Thomas Davis.
Yeah.
And and so that was a song, and people start putting down the reasons why, you know, they wanted that number one. A lot of people down 800 years of misery under the British rule and all kinds of things like that. But then I got a call from a producer, and he got on to me. He said, "We're in the top 10, you know," and he said, "How do you feel about, you know, I think we're number 3 or something at this stage." I said, "That's unbelievable." He said, "You know something? We're after getting calls and votes from every part of the world." He said, "From remote islands in the Pacific to the heart of Africa, to India, Asia, all over the place." He said, "Look, it's unbelievable."
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it was. And well done, I have to say.
Yeah, the Irish diaspora.
Yeah, well, maybe the BBC's good for some things. Maybe it's good for that.
And do you know what? A reporter in I think it was in the Independent in Dublin, he got on to the BBC, and the producer told me this. He said, "Are you going to allow that, you know, the Wolf Tones win that contest?" He said, well, why not? He said, "Because they ran a campaign." And he said to me, he said, "Every group that was in that ran a campaign." And he said that it goes to the Wolf Tones, and that's it.
I was speaking to someone recently, and this is just by the chance. We had been trying to get you for an interview, and we know how busy you are, and we weren't sure, and then we had to wait to fail, and all of that stuff that was going on. But I was talking to someone who had been out of Ireland for quite a while, and they were coming through Dublin. And they'd all the intrepidation. This is well before the pandemic and all of that.
Yeah.
And they said they knew they were home when they were coming down the gantry, and there was a big sign saying the Wolf Tones.
Yeah.
When did you ever think that you would see an Irish rebel folk group been advertised in that way?
Well, what we did, I think it was back in the 70s. It was back in the 70s. We decided that we'd welcome everybody to Ireland.
Yep.
So we put up, you had to pay for it now.
Of course you did.
And all the airports and all the ferry ports, and we put posters up, and it was, I think we were the first to do it. Everybody hopped on the bandwagon after that. They knew the value of people coming in and seeing a big poster up there. So we put it in all the places, and you know, it worked. Welcome to Ireland from the Wolf Tones.
I want to talk a wee bit about, you mentioned your son, and I want to talk about your family. But let me just flick you back a page or two, and I should have asked you this at the beginning. How did you adopt the name of Wolf Tone? Was that a discussion? Was it your idea? Was it someone else's?
Yeah, we had a lot of names that were bandied about, and we were looking for a name. And I think I came up with the idea of, someone came up with some other idea, and you know, tone had a kind of musical implication.
Yeah.
And having loved Wolf Tone in my history.
Yeah.
You know, it seemed like he was the man that his name would fulfill the ideals that we represented. And that was a united Ireland, a gathering of people regardless of religion.
Other background.
Yeah, and the ideals that we shared, you know, back then. The fact, you know, that it had the musical implication in its a name as well. Yeah. Immediately, we knew we had the right name.
Oh boy, you did. Oh, you really did. Can I ask you, and I know you're quite private about your family, although I think you have a daughter and son who's involved in the business, or
yeah.
And you have 4 children altogether.
I have 4, yeah.
And June?
And my wife June, yeah.
Where did you meet? Does June come from a musical background, or did you?
No, she doesn't really. No, but it's been a long story with myself and June. I met June when I was only 15, and we arranged to have a date the next week. We never made it. I never made it. She was a north sider, I was a south sider. But they emigrated to England, and with our family, and they ended up living beside my aunt, who also lived in London. So I went over, you know, visiting, and the Joneses and all their cousins and they were all living beside my aunt, and I didn't know them all, but you know, I knew all the Joneses, and they were cousins of my wife, who was a Radbourne. And so eventually we were at a party in my cousin's house, and she came in with my cousin. She was palling around with my cousin Kay Maloney, and they came into the party, and of course we were all folky guys then, you know, whatever.
Trendies?
With you know, kind of you know, you dressed like a folk guy, you know, and it was jeans, it was polo neck jumpers and duffel coats. And anyhow, she didn't see anything in these guys playing guitars until about 2 years later, I'm back in London again, and she's still palling around with my cousin, and my cousin said he was trying to set her up with me, kind of thing, you know, and so that kind of happened. Then she came back to Ireland.
And then 4 children later.
Then 4 children later, we're still together.
You're going to do another sellout concert in Belfast, and I know you love Belfast. It's nearly your second home, and when I know that when you mention Belfast, you get that smile. So I know that part of it. This will be, you know, as I say, 11 consecutive concerts. That's leaving aside for Scéalta. That is, it's leaving aside everything else that you do. It's a very hard life on the road. It's a very hard life, I would imagine, for your family, and it's a difficulty, and you know, you're travelling about and you're homesick and all of that. Do you ever consider like just settling down?
Well, I think I said to somebody, I'm not going to give up until Ireland's united.
Good for you, good for you.
And maybe I might think about it then. But like, going back to Belfast, I mean, I remember coming up, we were only kids, up to St. Mary's Hall.
Yes.
And we played there several times. And then we got a contract with Fontana Records, and Leslie Mann from Belfast was our A&R man, and he was a good Irish Protestant, as we have, and he loved the Wolf Tones and the Rebel songs. Oh my God, couldn't get enough. But when we were bringing out I think our second or third album, he says, I have the title, I want to call it Up the Rebels. And that was Leslie Mann. And then we were around Belfast one day, and they were building the bridge. Remember that bridge?
Yeah, I do.
So he says, come on, Brian, he said, I want you to write a song with me. I said, what's it about? He said, they're building a bridge in Belfast. He said, we have to write a song. So we wrote this terrible song, you know. Oh, they built a bridge in Belfast, and it's causing quite a stir, because they're giving it we'll never know for sure. Which name has been decided? I can't remember the name. Always a Paisley, Wolf Tone, Lag and Bridge. Somebody said Pope Paul. You know, and so we went through that. We never released it.
Well, this is a first for Scéalta. This is us kind of breaking through. Do you, when you're a prolific writer, and I know as well as the music, and you talk about a book of your life and a book of the life of the tones and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
All of that. Is writing a natural gift to you, or do you see something and then you go, I need to write about that, or do you kind of instantly know what you're going to write about?
No, I think I've written about 120 songs for the band now. Yeah. And, you know, when I was a kid, I was in the Boy Scouts. When we go out on outings, you know, I'd put a ditty together about what went on, you know, and slagging the other guys or whatever, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And then, you know, when the other guys that were in the kind of mates, there was Derek had another group called the Circle Group, and we were over in England, and we were doing very well. So they came over, and I wrote a welcome song for them, and it was, "Oh, there were 4 young lads who left Dublin town. They left poor old Ireland to work for the crown." And they came over to England, though they hated it so, but they didn't care less what they did for their dough. So it was kind of, then I had a verse about each one of them, and so I was always doing kind of things like that. And of course, like, I wasn't established, and you know, I don't think the other lads understood kind of creative song writing or whatever. And I remember I wrote a song called "The Teddy Bear's Head."
I remember it very well. Yeah, of course.
But this is like long before we released it and everything else like that. And I brought it. I said, I got a new song off Dominic Breen. What is it? It's called "The Teddy Bear's Head." Immediately, oh, that's great.
What's the name of being? Yeah.
So at last, I got a bit of acclaim. But like, you know, because they're too familiar with you and they don't know.
Of course.
And I was the baby of the band, let's put it that way. How could he be writing songs? You know what I mean?
We should be writing them. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, I was 3 years younger at the stage than, you know, than they were. So I was the baby, and how could you know? Back then, when I started off performance, I was about 15, you know, 16. So they saw me as a baby, and they wouldn't give you a look in. You know what I mean?
Do you have any idea? I was trying to get figures last night, and I couldn't actually get them. But do you have any idea your record sales? Do you have any idea how many you've sold?
Oh, during final days, it was just massive. I remember "Let the People Sing," which was a huge, huge big vinyl.
Number one.
Yeah, it was huge, and that I don't know. At the time, we were worldwide, we were close to 1 million sales.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody in Ireland has ever sold as much.
No,
because vinyl went out, and because vinyl went out, you couldn't copy vinyl. You could copy a tape, you could copy all that other formats, but with vinyl you had to buy the record, and so it sold enormously. And since then, like, you know, other bands and groups have come up, but they might sell worldwide 1 million pieces, but they won't sell it in Ireland.
No. Of all the groups, I mean, I'm talking about the groups that came before you, and some who are still here, still singing. These are the highest selling. There's no doubt about that. It's just that I was trying to put a figure on it. Can I ask you, just whenever you get time off, and I know that you're not touring now with the intensity you did in the 80s or whatever, but whenever you get time off, what do you like to do? Apart from politics, what do you like to do?
Well, I love creating, and that's why writing this musical play, because I have this on the back burner since I was about 23, and I never got time to do it because always something comes up. Like I'm writing songs for the band or writing songs, and a lot of songs you write, of course, don't see the later day because no one likes them.
Well,
There's the bad ones as well as the good ones.
I wouldn't have said that, but anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, I've loads of bits and pieces of songs that either I never finished or never saw the light of day. But, you know, so I'd be always up to something. Like, if I have time off, I do like to garden.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I like to go out in the garden and potter around. I like to... I play the odd game of golf, but I must say I'll never be a golfer. You know, and thank God I don't have to make a living out of it because I'm terrible. But I used to go out just for the air, you know, and the conversation. But no, apart from that, family is dear to me. Like, you know, I spent a lot of time. And then when we were touring around Ireland in our younger days and everything, the family in the summer came with us. And, you know, when we go to Chockfobo and Galway and everything else like that, the kids would be all with us. And, you know, let's say all our kids grew up together because of the fact that we're all on the road with us. And I always remember the big thing, are we nearly there yet, Daddy? Are we nearly
Is
there?
it far to go?
Oh yeah, the road to Galway is a long and winding road in them days.
You're going to do yet another sellout concert, and the Tones have done really thousands of sellout concerts, and indoor and outdoor and all of that, and you'll be the accolades of the crowd, and they'll be screaming in your face, and you'll be singing as loud as you can sing. But it's a bit of a contradiction because you're a quiet man.
I think, you know, I love people.
Do you come alive on stage?
Yeah. I love people, and I bounce off people, let's put it that way. I love to, you know, I love telling them the story, and that's the important thing about the Wolf Tones. Every song is a story.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, like, one of the reasons I wrote songs like Joe McDonald is because, you know, over in America, as I said, they were getting the wrong message. And that hurt me a lot. You know, calling Irish people terrorists because they were looking for equality like everybody else in the world is looking for. And to label them as such, that really got me down. I said, you know, and then the morning Joe McDonald died, I decided I'd had enough, the fifth man to go, and I don't want any more. And I wrote it so it might stop, or might help in some way of stopping it. And I remember then I wrote it that morning. It was finished by 1 o'clock that day, and I brought it to the group at one stage, and the group didn't want to do it. So it was left on the back burner for a while, and I was singing it at we were on tour in America, and I sang it at one of these after party things, you know, and people say, why have you not recorded this song? Yeah, and that's a very powerful song. So eventually, the guys decided, yeah, we'll do it.
Can I just tell you what you just done there? I asked you about you, and you went back to music.
Yeah.
So what I said to you was you're a quiet man. There seems to be a contradiction between the showman and Brian sitting with me, and you just turned it into a song. But are you a quiet man?
I don't know.
Maybe I should ask someone else that question.
I don't know. Like I live a quiet life, I suppose. Yeah. I wouldn't be like I'm not a loud guy looking for attention. Let's put it that way. I know some people are, and they have that in there. That's not in my makeup. If anything annoys me, it doesn't matter what it is. It goes into a song.
That's the question.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to get at.
It goes into a song. I wrote a song called Big Brother, which is about all these, everybody, you know, government taking over your life, sort of thing. And that kind of that annoys me, you know, you're losing some of your civil liberties. Now, I've nothing to hide, but I mean, at the point is that, you know, I don't want everybody, you know, someone in the civil service looking into my life.
Knowing your business.
Yeah. But I mean, they're kind of things that, you know, that have happened in their generation that didn't happen in other generations. I guess they maybe did, but, you know, now it's the internet and everything, and they can, you know, it's...
Oh, and they absolutely
Yeah,
do.
it's kind of frightening in a way, I think, you know, that, you know, they can control everything from your birth until your death.
And you had a run at the banks at one stage in the song. You give them a turn as well for what they were doing.
Swing a banker.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, well, them guys, you know, them guys nearly wrecked Ireland, and, you know, whatever little economy we had going, you know, it was disgraceful that so few people could ruin so many, and that's what it was. And that, again, you know, I'm passionate about Irish people, and when they suffer, I suffer.
When we began, I said, by way of thanking you that you'd taken time out. I know to say that you're busy is an understatement, and you've taken time out today, and you're going to do a sellout concert. Do you get nervous?
No, normally I wouldn't, but I'm a bit nervous about tonight. As soon as I get on stage, it'll be grand. But I am a little nervous about tonight because I haven't performed in a year and 8 months, you know.
Yeah.
And okay, I've been sort of hiding my life into a creative project, and all that music and songs of this project is roaming around here and there and everywhere. And then I went back there last week or the week before, and I said, better brush up on these songs that I'm going to sing at the show. So I had to do that, and it was surprising how many were difficult after singing them like for 1,000,000 times over.
I think that's you just been
You do get it. So now I feel confident because I've gone through and I made sure that everything
Well, let me tell
will be
you,
right.
and I don't know very much about music, and I don't know anything about performing, but one of the things that artists, good artists, I think attract is a warmth from an audience that nearly creates that bond before
It drives you, yeah.
before you strum a guitar.
Yeah.
Belfast, West Belfast is waiting for you.
Okay.
Listen, I can assure you of that.
And we're waiting on you.
And whenever you're back we're in the Connolly Centre, of course. Whenever you're back to come round the Connolly Centre at your leisure, you're going to be saying one of the best gigs I've ever done.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, just because I want to go through this with you and just to get a wider sense of it. Do you have plans for the future, or does the future kick off as it happens? Does it just be one of those things?
Yeah, I think I said earlier that...
But apart from the...
Yeah, we've no roadmap for
That's
Ireland.
what... That's
yeah.
Tell me that again.
Yeah, no roadmap. We're just going to take it as it comes.
No roadmap should be the title of your next LP or CD. It should be the title.
Yeah,
It's a great
but we don't. So, like, what happens in the future? I'm hoping that I can drive my play to Broadway and bring it to America, and I think America needs a good show about Ireland.
I thought you were going to say good kicking, but a good show.
But they need a good show about Ireland. You know, every country has had their say.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, there's very little on Ireland. So that's my ambition. I'm not saying it's going to make it or anything like that, but I feel it is. I feel it's good enough to be there. I know I've written a great thing, and I know it's going to be great. And I know, do I sound like too confident here? But,
no, you don't know.
But yeah, I know it's true to life. I think one of the reasons, like they brought that musical to Broadway. It was about Gláine Whale.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to Irish American people in the AOH or in various organisations, And they said, oh, my God, what a terrible play. They were trying to make Elizabeth into a saint. So they weren't going to take anything. They know their history.
Oh, yeah, they know the real thing.
Yeah, they couldn't accept a play or a musical where Elizabeth I was a saint. You know, that she was a lovely, lovely person. Yeah. And, you know...
Not our experience.
Yeah, not Ireland's experience. So it was a lack of knowledge, I feel, on behalf of the promoters, that they didn't understand, first of all, Irish history, and didn't understand the passion of Irish America.
I want to ask you the last question. We've been speaking for an hour, and it's...
Oh my God.
It's whizzed past, I have to say. And I'm now an adopted son of the Wolf Tones, so thank you for offering me that.
Thank you, Joe.
But one question I want to ask you, you know, those three lads from Inchicore who decided to have a bit of crack, and they might get a few pints by playing in the local pub, and they would do that.
Yeah.
And they went on to be the biggest Irish folk group in the world, not in Ireland, in the world, Irish folk group in the world. Did you ever think you would reach these heights when you started, or was it just a bit of crack?
Never. And once again, we hadn't plans. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do... No. What happened was we got a record contract when very few people had it in Ireland. And it happened because people thought we had something to offer the world. Now, we didn't look for a record contract or anything like that. It came to us. And it seemed like everything came to us after that. It was like one thing happening after another. And we got a manager then who was kind of very interested in the band and our music. We got Leslie Mann here in Belfast who loved the Wolf Tones. And he was no doubt a Protestant paddy. And so like it was people like that along the way who felt and liked your music, liked what you were doing, and wanted to help it.
And a bit of talent thrown in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so, you know, that's the way the Wolf Tones went from year to year, good year, bad year, whatever, didn't matter.
Well, long may it last, Brian.
And thank you.
I'm gonna let you go to get all the stuff you had to do, but you've been a wonderful guest. It's been a great conversation. It's been great crack and a great insight, and I'll see you at the show.
Well, thank you, Joe, and nice of you to ask me here today. And we do love the people of Belfast.
Oh, absolutely.
My heart has always been here in Belfast, right during the Troubles, walking down the black streets with the lights out and everything else, being held up by the British Army. I remember I had a little Connolly badge up here in my lapel, and the guy goes to me, "What's all this then, Mike?" And I said, "That's my badge, the same as that's your badge up there on his hat." So we walked away, they let us go anyhow on our way. But, you know, and that's the way it is, you know, respect.
On those words, thank you.
Good to meet you, Margaret.